Alright, howdy. So I am going to do a little demo today of an amp that I just picked up the other day. I just did a little bit of maintenance on it, cleaning up the pots and things like that. It is a 1977 Peavey Classic. It's a 2x12 combo, 50 watts with a solid state preamp and a tube power amp. There were lots of Peavey amps with that setup in the 70s. Interestingly enough, it's kind of also the way that some of Leo Fender's Music Man amps went after he split from Fender. But it's clearly, I think, meant to be a competitor to the Twin, both in terms of the size. It's half the power of a Twin, but it's pretty loud. Has two channels, normal and bright. And then it has bass, middle, treble, reverb. It's a nice long tank spring reverb, and it has tremolo with depth and rate controls, and then a master volume over there on the right. Sorry, now you can see it. So it's got four inputs. It has I'll deal with them kind of in inverse order here, because the leftmost one and the rightmost one are the easiest to understand. It has a bright channel and a normal channel, and those are the inputs on the far left and far right. The two in the middle I'll get to in a minute. But on the left you have the bright channel, which sounds about like this. Now, because you have a master volume, you can crank the volume on the channel itself up. Get some pretty vicious distortion on that. Or you can turn it down and get a cleaner sound. Now I said it's got spring reverb, which is on right now. And it'll go to a pretty ridiculously high level. And then you've got the normal input here. It just has a little bit less high end on it. It's pretty similar though. Now, where it gets really interesting is you have then the parallel input. On the parallel input, you're hearing both channels right next to each other. So each of the volume controls will affect the overall volume, but it's basically two of the same channel almost. When you put use the series input, now what you're doing is you're actually cascading volume 1 for the bright channel and volume 2 for the normal channel. Get some pretty kind of more mellow, kind of classic rock tones. Now this is where the switch is going to come into play. So the switch has a couple different buttons on it. It's got Selector, Combiner, and Reverb. Now the Reverb does what you think. And by the way, this is a switch you would not want to lose if you want to use this function, because it's a 6-pin connector, which is really rare. You would need to have this specific switch, and I'm guessing no other aftermarket switch would copy this wiring. Combiner turns on both channels if you're in the series or parallel jacks. And it overrides the selector jack. So in Selector, Selector does different things depending on which input you're plugged into. This took me a little bit to figure out because the manual isn't very clear on it, but because it's talking about clean and distorted sounds. With the cord in the series jack and the selector, you're actually changing between having just the one channel or both of them. So if I turn these both kind of up here, so what it's acting like there is it's basically kicking in that second gain stage for a lead or something. So I could be playing chords on this, you know. Okay, so here's where it gets even trickier. If I take this out and plug it into parallel, combiner chooses one or the other. And you hear it switching between the bright, which is lower in volume, and the normal, which is heavier. If I hit combiner now, but if I hit combiner also, the selector switch doesn't do anything. Combiner overrides it, so that's really confusing. But that's basically the amp in a nutshell. I think really it's a pretty good sounding amp, you know, solid state and tube output. The tube output gives it some nice glassiness if you've got it set clean. And I will, let's see here. Plug it into this one. Pretty nice glassy clean tone. Obviously you can get some pretty grungy tones too, although pretty much, you know, like the tones you could get out of the 70s master volume when you cranked the channel volume and kept the master volume down. It's a little bit kind of grindy, grungy for today's tastes. But you know, if you're in a cover band back in the 70s, it's probably a pretty versatile amp. So overall, I think it's a pretty good amp. I think probably the weak link in it is the speakers, because they're just some you know, kind of small magnet CTS speakers, and I think it probably would benefit from some nicer ones. But you know, for very little money, you can get into a 2-channel 50-watt amp with you know, pretty good number of sounds in it. So this is probably the only one I've seen in this condition in 20 years. But if you can find one out there and you get a good deal on it, it's probably worth picking up. All right, thanks.